I'm Mary Marshall. I'm a meteorologist and environmental reporter for WSA 9, and I have the pleasure. Thank you. Yes, I'll take a warm reception, absolutely. I do have the distinct pleasure of being your master of ceremony for the 4th year. I'm really excited to join you all here again for this wonderful event. Now, last year's program was remarkable, really, and I'm thrilled to join you again as MC for the Distinguished Lecture Series. So please, if you could, join me and turn your attention to the screen for a brief presentation.
The Constitution doesn't say that judges are supposed to be empathetic and compassionate and gracious with the people that come before the judges. Judge Williams was that. Judge Williams was as respectful of anyone in the courtroom, regardless of their rank, regardless of their title.
You know, I remember the time we'd be in chambers, like, where's the judge? And like, I think he's down in the clerk's office. I think he's down there teaching the clerks how to do the electric slide. He would do stuff like that.
He was so respectful also of defendants before him, and just really saw the humanity in everyone.
The thing about Judge Williams is that he just can connect with anyone. No matter who you are, where you're from, what your background is, he can connect to you and you feel like he's listening and he hears you. And that's so important.
Judge Williams is the total and complete leader. And I wish that more folks in our legal field would follow his model and follow his pattern. And so that's what I work hard to try to do each day, both excellence in operation, excellence in jurisprudence, and excellence in life.
There's just something about him that he gravitates towards kind of young up-and-coming lawyers, and he provides opportunities that, you know, you may not otherwise have. And he opens himself up. He allows for you to ask him about the practice of law, and he, certainly shares his knowledge and his wisdom as not only an attorney, but also as a politician, and we served as a public servant in Prince George's County, and he just really instilled that in those people that he touched.
So you come into the job knowing so little, and the sense that I got as a clerk for Judge Williams was this immediate sense of empowerment. He would empower us to take the caseloads that we had, to review court filings on the cases that we were assigned, and to propose resolutions, to him. So to be a graduate of a law school, sitting in the chambers of a federal district judge, right after just leaving law school, and advising him and seeing him listen to the suggestions and ask probing questions, it was just a really remarkable experience.
He always wanted us to get the case right and get the decision right, but his mantra always was, do justice. And I think that carries on with the center as well, and being on the board, which is the focus is doing justice.
The judge did not allow us to cut corners as we were helping to draft opinions or helping him to just get through a day of hearings. And so he really set a standard of excellence that shone through, frankly, when I got to the law firm. In fact, I felt like I was so far ahead of my contemporary associate at the law firm because of the training and the experiences that I gained through the clerkship.
Lots of the board was made up of his former law clerks. So it was an honor kind of to continue to serve Judge Williams in that capacity. And as we've grown, the board has expanded well beyond, the law clerks that once served for him. And so that's fulfilling there. It's just watching this organization grow, the impact that it's making in the state and across the country.
When you've been given so much by a person in terms of the mentorship, support throughout my career from Judge Williams, you feel a degree of almost helpless as to how you can ever repay that debt through your own deeds. And certainly you repay it forward by the mentoring you do of other people, but you also you do want to pay it back to the person who gave you that. And that's why serving on this board is so meaningful.
And he's assembled a cadre of great thinkers and great servers. And so it's great to be a part of that diverse board of folks that have the common interest that we share with Judge Williams.
Never forget about your community. always just be active in your community and just find ways to give back. I mean, I think that that's one of the lessons that I've taken from Judge Williams that I've always tried to keep throughout my life.
Honor to be in his orbit still, and even more of an honor to help enable the work he's looking to do in the areas of education, justice, and ethics.
Well, at this time, I would like to introduce Michael Pastor, board member of the Judge A.W. Central Board of Directors, who will give some brief remarks.
Yeah, I'm a technology lawyer that still brings a piece of paper when I speak. So good evening, everyone. On behalf of the board of directors of the Judge Alexander Williams Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics, I wanted to welcome you all tonight. I want to thank you for coming, and I want to thank you for your support of the center. I also wanted to take this first moment up here to give a shout out and thanks to Marcy. I don't know where you are, Marcy, but I don't think this is happening without you. Thank you so much. So my name is Michael Pastor. I'm a law professor and the director of the Tricarico Institute at New York Law School in New York City. And the center that we're here to celebrate has been doing exceptional things since we last gathered a year ago, but I'm not going to talk about that because so many other people will. You'll be hearing so much about what the center does. What I do want to talk about in my remarks is a theme that runs through Judge Williams' career and also ties into the subject matter that we're going to be hearing about today. And that theme is public service. So there are some amongst us, and probably many in this room, who are called. And when they're called to serve, they answer the call and they go serve. And Judge Williams is an example of that. He was called to serve as state's attorney in PG County. He was called to serve by the President of the United States to be a district judge in Maryland. And he wasn't maybe called to serve to do this, but he does do this. He teaches law at Howard University and has done that for many years. Hundreds of students have learned from him. And so he would go to work for all those years doing that every day, working hard every day, because he cared about the people of his community, the people that came before him, the people that he was teaching. And I find that to be just a truly inspiring and honorable path that he took. And I think it's worth noting that people like Judge Williams have choices. I mean, they don't have to do that. They can do lots of other things, but they choose to do that. And what happens as a result is that they have an immense impact over the course of the years through all the effort that they put in. And for me, as someone who got to clerk for him now more than 2 decades ago, it's just one of many reasons why I'm so honored to have done that, to see the dedication he put into his community and to service. So when we heard that he was going to be stepping down as a judge, I don't think there were many of us who thought that Judge Williams was going to be, playing 7 days of golf a week and just nothing but a life of leisure. Not that that would be bad. He deserves it, given how much he has worked. But what did he do when he was done serving all those years and decades? He raised his hand and said, I would like to keep serving. And that's what he's doing here. And that's what we're here to celebrate today. So now he's serving the students of the University of Maryland, this great university, and it's just so inspiring to see. So how does that tie into our speakers tonight? So our speakers tonight, many of them are public servants. I think all of them are public servants. I don't have the fortune to know them, except for one, Vinny Schiraldi, who I got to work with back in New York City, and it's great to see Vinny here. I'm guessing, though, if you ask them, and we'll see if this comes up tonight, the reason that they do what they do is because they care. That's what public servants do. They care. And in this particular instance, they care about our youth. And I think it's worth asking the question, if we're not caring about our youth, what are we doing? What's the point if we're not working to do that? And that's one of the reasons that I'm so honored to serve on this board and so honored to serve with the other members of this board, because that's what we're devoting our time to do and what the center is doing. So I'm inspired every day by Judge Williams, and I'm inspired by the speakers we're going to hear from tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing from them. So I'm going to end my remarks with one last comment, because fate has smiled upon me with something I get to say to end this. So I'm a lifelong and now suffering fan of the New York Football Giants. Judge Williams is a lifelong fan of the Washington Football Team, the Commanders. Yeah! I know, it's kind of hurting me even what I'm about to say. But tonight, there's a football game. So it's a special night. We're going to celebrate the center here tonight, and then the Commanders are going to go play. Commanders happen to be playing the extremely loathsome Philadelphia Eagles tonight. So I get to say, it's rare for me, Judge Williams, I wish your team all the best tonight. I hope they win. It's hard for me to say, but I really do hope they can. So with that, again, a big welcome for the board. I know a lot of the board is here today. We're so honored to be welcoming you today, and I hope you enjoy the evening.
All right, at this time, would like to introduce Karen Bond, Judge A.W. Cincher, Director of Outreach and Strategic Partnership.
Good evening, everyone. I have the absolute joy every day of working with Judge Williams, Marcy, and all of our colleagues. But tonight, I stand first to graciously thank each donor, and I'm going to read some of the names, but not all of them, but please know that we would not be here without what you have generously given. And I hope that tonight, after you have watched the video that will follow me, if you haven't joined the team of being a donor, you'll be encouraged to in making a difference. Of course, our board gives, and we are so grateful to them. And tonight, the Visionary Circle is led by Kim and Michael, and we thank you for turning the lights on brilliantly, and it has made such a difference. Thank you so much, and I want to especially invite you, Michael, to come to Baltimore and see what your generous gift is doing in action. So thank you so much. And if the judge had more students like you, wow, we would take the whole block. But thank you so much. You're gracious. Thank you. Bruce Mariani, I didn't get a chance to say thank you. Where are you, Bruce? Oh, Bruce, you had a line around you. Thank you so much. We're so grateful to you. Thank you for all you do as our change agent, leading the way, followed by Jim and Patty Rouse Charitable Foundation, Wilson White and Malika White, our organizer, Frank Kelly, the Honorable Frank Kelly and his wife, Janet Kelly Dinsmore, Adrian Reformer, where are you? This way. Thank you so much. Nelson Mullen and Walker Memorial and all of our champions. Only because I have a short period of time, I won't read the rest of the names, but I want to say that tonight we're talking about problems, and the center's work lives every day in the space of solutions. The video that you're going to watch, you can read more about on page 18, and that's our social justice boot camp, because we care so deeply about the children who have to live with the news and those who often make the news. So without any further talking, I will draw your attention to the screen and hope that you will consider supporting this and our other efforts. Thank you so much.
We're very excited to sponsor our third annual Social Justice Boot Camp.
This event is really a chance to engage youth who are passionate about these issues, give them some training, give them some resources, and give them some opportunity to connect with each other to get to see how they can make a change.
What we do at the Social Justice Boot Camp is to kind of try to broaden their horizons and give them a sense of how important their voices are going to be going into the future.
I've noticed the students, they're inquisitive, they're excited.
We want the kids at the Social Justice Workshop to recognize that health is wealth.
I want them to come here understanding what their voice is and then going home and utilizing that voice to make change in their communities.
You can't tell somebody it's something that you haven't been through. So as I give them the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights, is because I experienced prejudice and police corruption with my own encounter with law enforcement.
Knowledge is power, and that's what we're giving these kids today. The knowledge to go out into the world and to help end gun violence in their community.
And if I can help one student stay out of the criminal justice system, I think I've done my job. Events like this are important for the youth of our generation because, you know, it really helps us like understand the different concepts that we have trouble grasping. Like before this, I had a lot of trouble grasping like health and equity, but now I'm really starting to understand more about what it's really about.
The topics that we talk about during our time here, they're really important factors in our community that we really need to worry about, that a lot of people don't worry about.
This is my second year and I came back because it made such an impact on my life and helped me make a lot of more decisions I wouldn't be making today without it.
I'm gonna take away just knowing my rights, like knowing my 4th and 5th and 6th Amendment right, knowing all the people that I was able to meet, and just the friendly environment that I would encourage my other friends or grades below me to go next year if they're available to.
One main thing that I'm going to take away from this year's session is that I have a voice and I can affect my community. I can bring people together. I can spread awareness. And I can help. I can be a change.
What an impressive video. It truly speaks to the center's growing impact on our community. I really hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Well, every year at this annual lecture series, the Judge A.W. Center recognizes organizations that exemplify the importance of education, justice, or ethics. This year's honorees have all demonstrated excellence in their commitment to advancing justice, which we will learn more about this evening, is one of the pressing issues of our time. I would like to invite Judge A.W. Center Board Member Jessica Kinkosa, who will introduce the honoree video.
Please join me in turning your attention to the screen for a brief video presentation about this year's Justice Award honorees.
Greetings on behalf of the Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center, our Board of Directors, and staff. I am honored to present our honorees for this year's 6th annual lecture that focuses on justice and on juvenile justice in Maryland in particular. Congratulations to the Latin American Youth Center. The Latin American Youth Center provides programs that develop and enhance opportunities for the youths. You will note that there is a common thread to their work, which takes on even greater significance in a challenging world of today. We salute their efforts that don't always make the news.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lupe Quinteros Grady, President and CEO of the Latin American Youth Center. I'm deeply honored to receive the 2024 Judge Alexander Williams Center Justice Award on behalf of LAYC. I would like to thank the Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics for this incredible recognition. The Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Centers for Education, Justice, and Ethics serves as an inspiration for all of us who are dedicated to supporting our most vulnerable communities and helping to address increased disparities. This award is not just a reflection of my work, but of the entire LAYC staff. The work in our communities is not done in silos. I am grateful to LAYC's Board of Directors, community-based organizations, Prince George's County Public Schools, and government partners in Prince George's and Montgomery counties and Washington, D.C. that work together to have a collective impact. It is important that we continue to listen to our communities and engage them to be part of the solutions because they know the answers. At LAYC, we serve over 4,000 youth annually. Every young person deserves a safe space and the opportunity to succeed regardless of their circumstances. For decades, we have worked to create pathways for youth to thrive by providing critical services in education, workforce development, social services, housing, and more. The challenges facing our youth are multifaceted, from mental health struggles, housing instability, education gaps, and safety concerns in their communities. It is upon us, the adults, to not fail them and continue to challenge systemic structures that create these inequities. I believe our youth are an asset, and with the right tools and supports, they can thrive to be their best selves. Thank you again to the Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center for this honor and your commitment to use your resources to advance social justice.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating our 2024 Justice Award honoree, Latin American Youth Center. Their board vice chair, Jennifer Muskoff, is accepting the award on behalf of the Latin American Youth Center.
Congratulations once again. At this time, I would like to invite Judge A.W. Center Board member Adrian Mosley, who will come to the stage and introduce the honorary video.
Please turn your attention to the screens for a video about one of our honorees.
Greetings on behalf of the Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center, our Board of Directors and staff. I am honored to present our honorees for this year's 6th annual lecture that focuses on justice and on juvenile justice in Maryland in particular. Congratulations to the Rebuild, Overcome, and Rise Roar Center. The Rebuild, Overcome, and Rise Roar Center is at the forefront of addressing violence perpetrated on victims. You would note that there is a common thread to their work, which takes on even greater significance in a challenging world of today. We salute their efforts that don't always make the news.
Hello, my name is Lydia Watts. I'm the Executive Director of the Rebuild, Overcome, and Rise, or ROAR Center at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. All of us at ROAR want to thank the Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics for this honor. We want to especially thank our shared colleagues in this work, Che Bullock and Dr. Joseph Richardson, and a very special thanks to Marcy Deloach, who is such a joy to work with. ROAR works directly with survivors of all types of violence in Baltimore City, be that intimate partner violence, sexual assault, homicide, non-fatal gun violence, or other forms of assault, by providing for free a full range of multidisciplinary services, including legal, case management, nurse care management, and mental health services all in one place, which research has shown provides the best outcomes for survivors who are often managing myriad and complex needs. Whenever we speak about ROAR, we often ask, what would you do or tell a friend or family member to do if directly impacted by a violent incident? People may answer, talk to a family member or a trusted friend, maybe talk to a religious leader or medical professional, and most frequently, call the police. Police are the only systemic response in the U.S. offered to those who are victimized, yet we know that there are many people who don't want to or feel safe calling the police. Calling the police sets a carceral response in motion, and studies show, confirmed by my over 30 years of working with survivors, that most victims of violence want to be made whole and want to feel safe again, but not necessarily that they want the person who harmed them to go to jail or prison. For that reason, ROAR emphasizes serving those who are the least likely to contact the police, which includes people who have had negative experiences with the police in the past, oftentimes people of color, people who identify as LGBTQIA+, immigrants, especially recent arrivals and those who do not have legal status to remain in the U.S., people engaging in illegal activities, people who are unhoused, have substance use disorder, or have mental health issues. Our staff of attorneys, paralegals, case managers, therapists, and a community health nurse manager work collaboratively with survivors. We do not impose what we think they should do or want. Our actions are defined and directed by them. We do not require that the survivor have filed a police report to receive services from ROAR, and we have no immigration status restrictions, and serve people who make less than $70,000 per year plus an additional $5,000 per year for each dependent. We assist people who do not have IDs, who have criminal backgrounds, and those for whom a warrant may be outstanding. In addition to working directly with survivors, we also work to shift the narrative and perception around who is a true or worthy victim of crime. Many of our clients, especially of gun violence, are low-income young Black men who are often not seen as victims but rather as perpetrators of harm, even when they have been shot and are clearly hurting physically and emotionally. We feel an urgency to influence policy changes that are necessary so that all victims are treated with the respect, compassion, and dignity that they deserve, no matter what their life circumstances or past, and that they get the support they need to rebuild, overcome, and rise. Thank you again on behalf of everyone at ROAR.
The award will be accepted by Monifa Jeffrey Riggins and Sarah Lang, who will accept it on behalf of ROAR's Executive Director, Lydia Watts. Please welcome them.
Congratulations once again. At this time, I would like to invite Judge A.W. Center President of the Board, Craig Long, who will come to the stage and introduce the next honoree.
Please join me and direct your attention to the screens on my right and my left to introduce the honoree.
Greetings on behalf of the Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center, our Board of Directors and staff. I am honored to present our honorees for this year's 6th annual lecture that focuses on justice and on juvenile justice in Maryland in particular. Congratulations to the Anne Arundel County Community Action Agency. The Anne Arundel County Community Action Agency is a key provider and supporter for families and youths. You would note that there is a common thread to their work, which takes on even greater significance in a challenging world of today. We salute their efforts that don't always make the news.
I am Charlotte Fairley, Chief Executive Officer of Anne Arundel County Community Action Agency. I am deeply honored to receive the 2024 Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center for Education, Justice, and Ethics Education Award. Here today, I am reminded of the many hands and hearts that have shaped my journey and the meaningful work we all do together in education. I express my deepest gratitude to the Judge Alexander Williams Jr. Center for this recognition. The center's mission of promoting social justice, ethical leadership, and educational empowerment resonates with the core of my life's work. By providing a platform for dialogue, research, and advocacy, the center inspires the next generation of leaders to champion education and justice for all people, especially those in marginalized communities. This award reflects our work and the collective efforts of all educators, advocates, and community leaders who share a common vision. A vision where education is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. At Arundel County Community Action Agency, we've worked tirelessly to ensure that education remains a bridge to opportunity for those in need. We have believed and continue to believe that education is not just about learning, but about building a foundation for justice, equality, and the pursuit of a better life for every individual. I am incredibly grateful to my team, my colleagues, and the community that have supported me throughout my career. Your support has been integral to our collective success. This award strengthens my commitment to continue fighting for educational access, equity, and empowerment, especially for those who have been underserved or marginalized. Thank you once again for this tremendous honor. Together, let us continue to uplift and transform lives through the power of education. Your continued support and involvement are crucial for the future we envision.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating our 2024 Justice Award honoree, the Anne Arundel County Community Action Agency. And accepting the award is the agency's CEO, Dr. Charleston Fairley. For all of our awardees, the 2024 Justice Award.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael Pinard, Francis and Harriet Eigelhart Professor of Law, University of Maryland School of Law, and moderator for tonight's discussion.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right. So I would love for the panelists to soon take these chairs, but I'll offer some brief words. First, it's just an honor to be here. So just want to say that. So the issue of youth crime. Can anyone hear me, by the way? Am I speaking to the mic? Okay, good. So the issue of youth crime has received extensive coverage in our state, particularly in the media, as well as the Maryland General Assembly. There was significant coverage leading up to our past legislative session, and the same seems to be true this year. So over the past few years, the General Assembly has passed some significant bills focused on children in the youth and adult criminal legal systems. I'll just mention really just one at this point. So this past year, Maryland passed the Juvenile Law Reform Act. It went into effect about a month ago. This law does a couple things. Actually, the law does many things. I'm only going to mention a couple. It expands youth court jurisdiction over children who are 10 to 12 years of age. So it used to be, under the law that was passed a couple years ago, the general age of jurisdiction is 13. Right? That's when the child can be introduced to the court. Children 10 to 12 years old can only be charged in court for really sort of the narrowest, sort of most serious offenses you could imagine. What the law did this year was expand the number of crimes that 10 to 12-year-olds can be charged with, and also lengthens probation, and also creates a commission on juvenile justice reform and emerging and best practices. That's what it's called. That's not me talking. That's literally, it's a long title. But suffice it to say that there was some strong disagreement about this particular law. Another important issue is the automatic charging of children as adults. So per capita, Maryland charges more children as adults than every state other than Alabama. That's it for a second. About 80% of the children charged as an adult in Maryland is black, and according to a 2023 report from Human Rights for Kids, Maryland is one of two states, the other is Louisiana, where 6% or more of those in prison have been there since they were children, and 80% or more of that population is black. So there have been some legislative efforts over the past few years seeking to end the automatic charging of children as adults. The consensus seems to be that some type of bill will be introduced again this year. So we will see where things go. There are at least two things that I think we all can agree on, despite we may have differences of opinion, but I think we could all agree on this. Number one is we want public safety, right? We want to be safe and secure. Number two, we want children to thrive in all aspects of their lives, to reach their potential and to live rich, meaningful lives. So there are a couple of key questions. Number one is, what are the proper steps to take to maximize public safety? And number two is, how do we actually afford children these opportunities to thrive? So I hope we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. So I'll introduce the panelists, and as I introduce them, it'd be nice to give me some company here on the stage. How about that? All right, so we have Delegate Sandy Bartlett, who, yep, sure, how about that? Delegate Bartlett has been a member of the House of Delegates since January 2019, represents District 32 in Anne Arundel County, and she has served on the Family and Juvenile Law Subcommittee since 2021. We also have the Honorable Wytonja Curry, Judge Curry, Associate Judge for the Prince George's County Circuit Court in the 7th Judicial Circuit. She's been on the Circuit Court since December 2018 and has served as the Juvenile Coordinating Judge since 2023. Next we have Natasha Dartigue. We call her our Maryland Public Defender. She is the Maryland State Public Defender for 6-year term. That's right. That means she's the top. She's the head of the office, y'all. Just so you know what that means. Her 6-year term began in July of 2022. She is the first person of color to lead the office of the Public Defender. Next we have Vincent Schiraldi, all right? He's Secretary of the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services. He assumed this position in 2023, and Secretary Schiraldi has long been a national leader in criminal and juvenile justice and mass incarceration reform. And last but certainly not least, we have Carlotta Woodward, the Chief of the Juvenile Court Division for the State's Attorney for Montgomery County. She was appointed chief in 2017. Governor Moore recently appointed Chief Woodward to represent the Maryland State's Attorneys Association on the Commission on Juvenile Justice Reform and Emerging Best Practices, which came out of that law that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. So, all right. Okay, doke. So we are, basically this will be a conversation. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and you will hear the wisdom. All right? And so first question is to anybody and all, whoever wants to answer it. So, and again, the title of this is Beyond the Headlines. So we first have to talk about the headlines before we get beyond the headlines. So children account for less than 10% of arrests in Maryland. But there seemingly is more of a focus on youth crime in the media. It's on the news, it's on the news, newspapers. It seems to be among the first things that we see when we read the paper. So we all are hearing a lot about youth crime, both in Maryland as well as nationally. Why? Anybody?
Well, I have the mic, so I'll go ahead and get started. I'm not shy. And to answer that question, I think we hear more about crime than we need to, quite frankly. I hear many of my friends say, I'm not going to watch the news for a week because they find it depressing. I think one of the reasons why we hear more about it is because the ACLU doesn't own a broadcasting network. Judge Williams does not own a broadcasting network. None of us here own a broadcasting network. And so we are at the whim of those who own the network and the subjects that they want to provide to us. As you said, Professor, it is not necessarily a prevalence of crime, but it is a sensationalism. You didn't say that, but you kind of implied it, and I'm saying it, of children and crime. One thing that stands true, it is always shocking to the system when we hear about children in the justice system. It's always a shock to the system. And unfortunately, our news broadcasters, no disrespect, but our news broadcasters know that. And you get more clicks and you get more attention that way. Last, I'll say that we have social media now. When I say now, I guess I just said my age, but with social media comes the ability for information to be spread and then later researched.
So, just to piggyback on that just a little bit, I think also in the media, when there are circumstances involving our children, that there are gun violence or gun violations involved, it's something that goes to the heart of our families and our community. So those get a lot more immediate attention, as they should, because those are very important and impacts the children, and because they can be charged as adults right away if they are involved in those types of issues, it starts the ball rolling and they become involved in the juvenile justice system or the adult system, and it's just a cycle that continues. So I think that's why a lot of families, once they have issues involving gun violence or carjackings or things like that, they get their children involved and the families involved in the system. It involves communities, and so everyone talks about it.
So in terms of why we continue to see certain images perpetrated in the media, there is selective reporting, and we live in a society in which there are biases and certain stereotypes continue to be perpetrated. We also live in a society where we thrive off of the salacious, so certain things are going to be repeated in the media because that is also what sells. You think about what you continue to see, what drives advertising, there's also that element of it. But in terms of what we see and how often we see it, it's definitely selective in what is shown, and is definitely a bias in terms of the negative images that we see of not only Black people, but in particular Black children.
I think we also, I don't disagree with anything that's been said, but I think it's also worth saying that there's too much crime in America. There's too much gun crime in America. We live in a nation saturated with guns, and it's easier for kids to find a gun now, and adults too. It's not just kids, than it is to get a ticket to a ball game. I started on January 31st, 2023. February 1st, the next day, one of the kids in my care was so brutally killed that the police couldn't even identify him. They had to identify him by the electronic monitor that was on his ankle. And this kid, when I look back in his file, lived in a world saturated with gun violence. He had committed a gun crime before he was sent to us at Victor Cullen. His brother was killed while he was locked up, and his other brother was shot and wounded. From then till 1 year later, I got and read the file of every single kid on our caseload that was the victim or perpetrator of a gun crime. They were shot or they shot somebody else. And that was 44 kids in that year. We only have 1,500 kids on our caseload. So think about a middle school with 1,500 kids where there were 44 shootings. If that happened in any middle school, the county exec or the superintendent would declare a state of emergency. Mike and I know each other from New York City, where he was with the Criminal Justice Coordinator's office and I was the probation commissioner, and that was adults and juveniles then. I had 30,000 people on my caseload. I didn't have 44 people shoot somebody or get shot with 30,000 people on my caseload, and I had 44 with 1,500 kids. So I do think, and 11 times as many adults committed gun crime as juveniles, but there's not 11 times as much coverage. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think we just also have to acknowledge how crazy it is out there. And some of the kids, like, we look back at their caseload, in their case files, and you could see there were some indicators, right? Like that young man I just talked about. Like, there were lots of indicators. We should have done a better job with that kid, without question. But some of it's a bolt from the blue. They're on their way to school, and somebody's trying to shoot the guy in front of them, and they shoot them. And so what happens when that happens is all the other kids think, I need a gun. I need a gun just to walk around this neighborhood. And then it just spirals from there. Once everybody's carrying a gun, there's no more fistfights anymore. So there's lots of things all the people up here are going to do to try to and talk about, hopefully during the course of this panel, to try to reduce that harm. But we are hampered by the fact that our society allows this many guns to exist. And I thank goodness that when I was a teenager, there was not as many guns around. Because I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I don't know if I'd have made it to and from school every day if this was the way it was when I was a kid. So yes, the media overhypes, without question. It is more interesting for them to cover a failure than a success. 94% of the kids that we divert don't have a new felony conviction, or don't have any conviction, no convictions within the next year. 94%, 19 out of 20. They only covered a 1 out of 20 that goes wrong. And so, for kids at that point, they get frustrated and they say, I know how to get coverage, right? Doing bad stuff. Doing good stuff gets me nothing. But I don't want to just blame the media. I think we all need to row hard to get guns out of these kids' hands and create environments in which they can thrive, as Michael said when he began. Like, what are we going to do to help kids turn their lives around, even while we acknowledge that they're getting an unfair deal from the media?
Can you hear me now? Okay, all right.
And I've been a prosecutor a long time, but at the beginning of my career, I was a defense attorney and I represented children. So I've been doing this for an extremely long time. And the amount of violent crimes that we are seeing from younger children, as well as the ability to obtain weapons, specifically guns. And we hear about ghost guns, we hear about privately manufactured guns that they literally can order and put together. And being from Montgomery County, we had a shooting where a young man was shot in the bathroom in a high school. And it was bringing a gun to school for protection. So this is what we are seeing, and I think that the media also gets information from the community. And community members are outraged at what they are seeing and the concern for the youth and the concern for their public safety. So that's what we are seeing.
Thank you. So Secretary Schiraldi, I want to drill down a bit about data. You mentioned a couple of stats. You talked about 95% of the children in care. So, because again, when we talk about beyond the headlines, the data is really, really important. So I'm going to ask you to talk to us about the data on youth crime and your approach at DJS to support children who are brought into the system and into your custody and care. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's good news and bad news. There's a little of both. We talked about the fact that there are too many guns and too many kids being involved in just carrying guns, even for just their own protection. That said, if you go back to 2014, so 10 years ago, 24,000 kids were referred to my department for arrests. It'll be about 14,000 this year, so a little more than half. So the numbers of kids that are referred to us for crimes, and that includes violent crimes and nonviolent crimes, have all declined. Now, it just depends on what time frame you're looking for, because what happened was it was a steady decline up until the pandemic. Then, for the first year of the pandemic, it plunged. It plunged because, all the kids were locked home, right? Nobody was out, nobody was going to school, nobody was walking on the street. And then it's come up every year since then. So 22, 23, and 24 were all higher than the year before, and we're about where we were pre-pandemic right now. So if you were looking at 20, you'd be like, oh my goodness, it's doubled. If you were looking at 10 years ago, it's cut in half. One of the things that happened during this time was that the department closed facilities and was saving money every year, but not spending money. So every year, my department gave back to the state $13 million a year. So literally, over the previous decade, we gave back $134 million. And then, so I get the job, I start going around to folks like the folks on this panel and saying, okay, tell me what you think about the department, what are we doing? And everybody's saying, we need more drug treatment programs, we need more mental health programs, we need more mentoring programs, we need more diversion programs. And this is a department that's been giving back $13 million a year. So last year, I gave back nothing, right? I actually spread it around to the local management boards, which, they funded diversion programs, and we started a program specifically focused on kids at the highest risk of gun violence. I went to the governor and I said, I'm going to need more money. I went to the General Assembly and said, I'm going to need more money. And they gave us $17 million additional dollars just to put into community-based programs, really kind of up and down the range. For the deeper end kids that have the highest risk, but also for the kids at the front end who are children in need of supervision or diversion cases. Because you kind of don't want to divert them to nothing. You want to divert them to something that nudges them on the right track. They don't need what the deep end kids do, but nothing's probably not what they need, right? That's a double negative difference. Yeah. So that's what we're in the process of doing right now. We're fortunate to get a fairly sizable grant from the federal government just to analyze the programs we have in the state and to talk to the key stakeholders to find out what they think we need. And when we do that, we'll have a more sophisticated expansion of what we call our continuum of care. What kind of kids? It's a really, I thought Staten Island and the Bronx were diverse. Cecil County and Baltimore City and Garrett County, that's diverse. We got a really different state with lots of different issues. And so this analysis will help us figure out what folks need in different counties at different parts of the system. And then we're just just fill the gaps as fast as we can.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So Judge Curry, let me come to you. So you mentioned in your opening remarks, you talked about children charged as adults right away, and I mentioned this auto charging provision in Maryland. So Maryland law, my understanding is that Maryland law requires that children who are 14 to 17 years of age charged with particular crimes, I'm thinking about 32 of these crimes, begin the court process in adult court, right? They're charged as adults at the outset. And can you tell us a bit about how this law operates in practice? That is, what happens or what can happen when a child is charged automatically as an adult in this condition?
All right, so by statute, juvenile court may not have jurisdiction over a child who is 14 or older who's been charged with a crime that would be punishable by life in prison if they were an adult. So, for instance, first-degree murder, first-degree rape, or anything along those lines. Also, if a child is 16 or older and they are charged with certain crimes, it could run the gamut between carjacking and abduction to second-degree murder. Those children also may not begin their process in juvenile court. They must begin their process in the circuit court or the district court in the adult process. After they are charged as adults, they go through the adult process, bail reviews, etc. They have to make a determination as to whether or not they serve, if they can be released or if they have to be detained either in an adult facility or a juvenile facility. And there is a process by which the child could be waived down unless the charge that they're charged with is first-degree murder and they're 16 or 17. They are not eligible.
The Constitution.
Okay, we're just going to act like you're
Okay. So during the waiver process, the child's attorney can file for a waiver back down to juvenile court. And so their attorney bears the burden of proof by preponderance of the evidence, and reports are done by the Department of Juvenile Services. The child's attorney can also submit reports, psychological evaluations, and things like that, and they are brought before the judge in what's called a waiver down proceeding. And during this proceeding, the court has to consider certain factors such as the age of the child, the physical, mental condition of the child, the amenability to treatment, the nature of the offense, public safety. There's 5 factors that have to go into consideration, and they're all considered equally. None is more important than the other. And then a determination is made as to whether or not the child will be waived back down to juvenile court or if they'll continue their process in circuit court or district court or whatever the case may be. So if the child is waived down, then they're waived down to juvenile court and they'll begin their process there with a detention review, and then the case is set in for adjudication and disposition.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So this brings me to a Madam Public Defender. Even with Secretary Schiraldi was talking about types of services and sort of using this money to sort of help children. I'm curious your thoughts about, there have been efforts, like you mentioned, to end this automatic charging. There have been some bills filed in the past, and we still have it. So the point is that's one of the advocacy sort of interventions. Just want to get your sort of thoughts, if you will, from your position about the automatic charging and what have your efforts been around that particular issue, your advocacy around that particular issue.
So, thank you for the question, and it does piggyback off of Judge's comments. So, the Office of the Public Defender, in collaboration with several advocates, is in fact seeking the end of automatic charging of children as adults. One of the primary, one of the primary reasons is essentially that we need to treat children as children. And the data, the facts all support the things that we know to be true in terms of development and understanding of children. But also, in terms of when we start the cases in adult court, it is in fact the state's attorney that makes that decision. When we start a matter in juvenile court, the judge who is a neutral arbiter would then have the discretion to make the determination whether or not The interests of the child, but also the interests of community, are best served either having the child receive services in the juvenile court or having the case heard in adult court. When a child is arrested and charged as an adult, it is exactly what it sounds. The child is going into an adult facility with adults. And as you can imagine, the trauma and the stresses and all the things that accompany that take place. When a child is in the juvenile court awaiting their adjudication, they have the opportunity to continue in school. They have the opportunity to have services such as therapy and whatever, in fact, the child needs. And you also have to think that the average adult case, and I'll use Baltimore City as an example, that is where my primary practice was. An adult case, especially a felony case, you could sit and wait for your hearing for 2 years on average before anything actually happened. Whereas in the juvenile court, there is a strict calendar at the time period in which the case must be brought forth for adjudication. That not only benefits the child, it benefits the victim, but it also benefits the community because we are addressing those issues in a more timely fashion. Not to mention the high number of cases in the adult court, even though the child is charged as an adult, that ultimately get dismissed. So when you talk about a humanitarian standpoint, a factual standpoint, and an economical standpoint, it makes sense for Maryland to have children treated as children, and the cases originate in juvenile court. When we look across the country, Maryland has the dishonor of being the states that are in the worst category. Professor Pernard talked about some of the facts, and I would emphasize again, Maryland is one of 4 states in the country that has a significantly high percentage of their current prison population in which those persons have been incarcerated since childhood. Maryland is amongst 19 states where 80% or more of the people incarcerated since childhood are people of color. So Maryland has the dubious distinction of being with South Carolina, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi. The trend is moving away from the automatic charging of children as adults. We're seeing that in Vermont, the minimum age is 18. New York and Michigan is also 18. Although California does not have a statutory age, if you are charged as a juvenile in California, their jurisdiction continues until age 25. And that coincides with what we know and science tells us about the development of the child's brain, that the brain is not fully developed until 25. So if we also to follow the science and what actually will benefit community, it is the ending of automatic charging of children as adults.
So Chief Woodward, I want to come to you, right? Because we heard a little bit from Van Public Defender about brain science, but how do you sort of balance community safety, compared to those victimized by crime, the brain science, just from your position as chief of the unit, and sort of your views on these particular issues?
I think one of the things that I specifically do is my unit handles all of the juveniles charged as juveniles, but also handles the juveniles charged as adults in those cases. And I think it benefits us in Montgomery County because we are so well versed in what happens in the juvenile system. And I think that we all can agree that children who come in the system, we want them to receive the services. We want them to be able to be in the community and be productive. But we also know that there's a reason why they are in the system. And I think that as a prosecutor, and what I look at specifically with juveniles charged as adults, is not only the crime that they've committed. I look to my victims, I have to look to public safety, and I have to look to the protection of the community. But then I also have to look at what that child needs and what is available. And I think that what we are seeing, and I think the Secretary talked about it, is through the years, is the lessening of services that are available to our children. And that can include services within the community, and it can include services out of the community. And I can also say that in speaking with some victims in some circumstances, that the length of services is not enough for these children. And that is, for an example, if I could give one, is dealing with an individual who may have committed a sex offense. And outpatient treatment is usually about 18 months. And so you really have to be able to put in the time and give the children exactly what they need and those services. And you have to individualize them. I always say I don't want to put a square peg in a round hole. You really want to make sure that every child receives everything that they need. And so when looking at it with juveniles charged as adults, I'm looking at what is going to be available if that child goes back to juvenile court. How long are we going to have to be able to work with that child? And is what there sufficient for that child? And if it's not, then I have to look for the protection of the community and for the victims. And we look in the adult system, and I think one of the questions was what's available is that we have the youthful offender unit at the Patuxent Institution. And I'm using that as an example for significant offenses where I'm talking about murder and I'm talking about rape, because it is for juveniles, it is a significantly long program, and it does provide services to those children. So I think it is really looking at as a whole and what is really appropriate for that child. And that's what I think.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Mr. Secretary.
Yeah, just a couple thoughts. One is research that wasn't discussed right now. There's been a lot of research looking specifically at what happens to kids in the adult system versus what happens to similarly situated kids in the juvenile system. And the researchers did this in a couple of different ways. So Florida's a good example, because in Florida, it's a prosecutorial discretion state. So if the prosecutor said the kid's going to go into adult court, the judge cannot reverse waive, not send the kid back to juvenile like a judge in Maryland can do. That kid stay in an adult court. So some prosecutors do that a lot, and in the next county, it could be a prosecutor who doesn't hardly do it at all. Right. So that sets up a situation for researchers where you can compare very similar kids across counties. And the Justice Department and the MacArthur Foundation funded several bits of research just to look at what happens to similarly situated kids. And when those kids who were similarly situated were tried as adults, they recidivated more quickly, more frequently, and for more violent offenses than the kids in the juvenile system. A different researcher did similar research in New York and New Jersey, because New York, the age of majority for a pretty long time, up until a few years ago, was 16. So on your 16th birthday, everybody was an adult for a standpoint of criminal court. Right. So if you committed a burglary at 16, you were going to adult court, and again, no reverse waiver. Similarly, you could compare that to kids in New Jersey. The only difference was the Hudson River, and it was 18 there. Same results. They recidivated more frequently, more quickly, and for more violent offenses. And so the Centers for Disease Control assembled all that research and said, this is not something that actually addresses public safety. The reason for that is the brain science and the developmental psychology. Kids aren't just smaller versions of adults. They're different in several important ways that matter from the standpoint of jurisprudence. They're essentially more malleable and less culpable. So the man of 30 is different from the boy of 15 in a way that the man of 30 is not as different from the man of 45. Those are two 15-year differences. All of us men who have hit 45 can attest to that. Right. We're way different from 15 to 30 than we are from 30 to 45. Right. Partly because our brains are going to develop, but partly because we're going to get experiences. One of the things that the MacArthur research particularly found is that kids are more peer influenced and more volatile emotionally charged settings. when we put them into correctional facilities, especially adult correctional facilities, they get influenced by a different set of peers than they will get in the community. So what Carlotta said is true. We need to be able to provide it. I'm absolutely going to say what we have yet isn't what it needs to be. We need to be able to provide the kinds of things that are going to guide the kids in the direction we want them to go, so they're the kind of neighbors we want them to be. Right. One last bit about Patuxent. I hear this over and over and over again. Please go to Patuxent. Tell me if any of you can find a 17-year-old in Patuxent, or an 18-year-old, or a 19-year-old, or a 20-year-old. The average age in Patuxent is 30. It takes a really long time to get into Patuxent. Most kids that will be tried as adults in the state of Maryland will go to prison and be released before they ever get a chance to touch Patuxent. Please.
Thank you. So I wanted to add a couple of points. In Maryland, Black children make up 31% of the population. However, when we look at detention, they make up 80%. So in that context, it cannot, in addition to what we know about the brain science and all the things, it cannot be the response that if we determine the child needs services and resources, that we lock them up. The response should be, how do we develop and get resources to the child in the community? Because where we are ever going to have public safety is when we create environments and places in society and we allow people to heal. Like Secretary Schiraldi gave the example of the shooting and what happened in the community. So you have these children, if they are not given services, mental health services, grief services, supports in the community, what do you think is going to happen? These children have to be given space and opportunity to heal. Simply locking them up as adults does not solve the problem. We keep talking about public safety and what does that actually mean? When we think about communities that are truly safe, what do we know about them? They have thriving schools. Individuals have economic opportunities. They have access to health care, transportation. Those are the things that make communities safe. The safest communities, the affluent communities, are not the communities where you have police officers on every corner or blue light cameras. There are certain basic needs that are met from the individuals in that community. So if we're going to have honest conversations about public safety, it cannot just be in the context of locking people up, and definitely not be in the context of locking children up.
Okay, so I'm approximately time. I'm just going to ask a couple more questions at this point. So, Delegate Bartlett, some of this, these perspectives that we have, right? Folks who care about the same issues but might see some things in some different ways. That sort of, in a way, sort of replicates the job you do sort of in Annapolis when you're hearing bills. And I'm just, I'm just curious about what sort of resonates with you and your colleagues, whether it's about narrative, whether it's about data, whether it's about stories. Just what is it, particularly with regard to sort of youth justice issues we're talking about? What is it that grabs the attention of you and your colleagues that you found in this space? Regardless of what the issues are, regardless of how you see the issues, just what grabs you?
Thank you, Professor, for that question. What grabs me the most are the parents, either the parents of a justice-involved youth or the parents of a victim. Their stories, you have some parents who, it's the parents. That's the thing that really gets me, because we don't get a handbook when you become a parent, you do the best you can, set up the environment as best as you can. But what we all want, my colleagues as well as myself, what we all want is to see a level of rehabilitation. We want to see a level of accountability for children. Now, by accountability, let me tell you exactly what I mean, because we throw that word around quite a bit. What I mean when I say accountability is actually, if a crime has been committed and you are that perpetrator, and you are a child, learning what you've done, learning what it is, learning the impact, learning how you can behave differently. A lot of times there are not behavioral changes that are taught. You know, we are all brought into the world and we want what we want and we want it when we want it. I mean, that's just something that some of us never even outgrow. And so I say that because I don't think, and it actually, Secretary, it actually breaks my heart to hear that number of I think you said 13 million. Was that the number?
Yeah.
That breaks my heart. Because it's not like we could, just kind of take our hands and say, okay, all done, because we weren't. I mean, we've been having, the question and the conversation of juvenile justice has, policy changes have been going on for decades. So it wasn't a job that was finished. It was a job that should have been continued. We heard from the youth services bureaus, and they explained the work that they do, but they also explained that they need the funding. So that's important to us to hear who you are, what are you doing, what is the impact that you have, and how can we assist? And I'm going to give a shout out right now to Anne Arundel County for Turnaround Thursday because, because that is the county that I represent as well, so I figured I'd take that privilege.
Okay. Did a lot of things over there. This is good. All right, so my last question, again, seeing the time. I'll start with Judge Curry. This is a question for everybody, but I'm actually stealing Michael Pastor's sort of question that you wanted the folks to answer, so that's how I'm getting it from Michael. But all of you are dedicated, amazing public service. You dedicated your lives to service, right, to justice, to community. What is it that continues to drive you to do the work that you're doing?
I guess each day, I'm the juvenile coordinating judge for Prince George's County. So children come through my courtroom every single day. And I meet each child where they are, depending on their circumstances, depending on their family environment, depending on their needs. And so with what I do, I just try to apply what I would do with my child to each of these children who appear before me. No child is alike. There's no two children that come from the exact same circumstance, not the same home environment, not the same educational environment. So I try to look through a lens of helping each child and giving them what they need in order for them to be successful and thrive in their community.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Madam Public Defender, yes.
What motivates me is essentially I was raised with the belief that to whom much is given, much is required. And I have lived an extremely blessed life. And I have had numerous people pour into me, and service is my way of paying it forward. And I have had the esteemed privilege of knowing Judge Williams when he was Professor Williams. I was in his class at Howard.
So I feel bad I wasn't in your class, Judge, but I'm wondering, like, maybe after you can teach me the electric slide, is that? So I started doing this 44 years ago, 1980, as a house parent in a group home. And I fell in love with it right then and there, right? Like working with these young people, and you know, I raised my kids in Montgomery County, and they had this incredible wealth of opportunities. And when I was doing that, I was running DC's juvenile justice system. And those kids in that facility, they lived 3 miles from my kids. And their opportunities were a desert compared to my kids. Could not only thrive and be good at stuff, they could be terrible at stuff and learn, oh, I'm not good at that. I'm going to do this instead. And they had this opportunity to sort of graze before they had to eat the whole meal. And I think, you know, as the judge said, like, these aren't some alien beings. They didn't fly here from another planet. They are, every one of them's got a mother, every one of them's got a father. They got people that care about them. They're loved. And we vilify them to such a degree that it really breaks my heart to be in rooms with them and watch how brilliant they can be when they are given a nugget of an opportunity, and how often instead our dialogue is around vilification. I saw this in the 90s when kids were called super predators, and we locked up more and more and more of them. It was absolutely terrible what we did to our young people back then. And what we're going through now smells a little like that. And it ain't my kids, right? It's not kids that look like my kids. It's kids that look like black and brown kids, 91%. Natasha said 81%, but then another 10% on top of that are Latino kids. So 91% of the kids we're trying as adults and we're sending to adult prisons are kids of color, and we're doing it twice as much as the national average. It's 6% of our prison population. National average is 3%. And I think Maryland needs to find a better way than this. The details matter, but we just need to commit that we're going to find a better way of doing this than just consigning these young people to learn the hard lessons you learn in an adult prison when you're a teenager.
I love what I do. I love giving back to the community. But I think for me, because I have specialized in being a juvenile, is that I love my success stories. And I love being able to see children grow and do well and come back and actually tell us how well they've done. And I think that that's something that I hold dear to myself.
Well, and with delegates.
Well, you know, I think one of the greatest pleasures I receive from being a delegate and what keeps me going is when someone comes in to the Judiciary Committee, they have 2 minutes to tell their story. Like I said, they may be a victim or they may be someone who perpetrated a crime and is a returning citizen. They have 2 minutes to tell their story. They have gone through traffic, they've gone through parking, and parking in Annapolis is not easy. And then they've walked, whether it's snowing, raining, it doesn't matter, but they have come in, they have waited, because when you sign up to testify in judiciary, it says 1 o'clock. But sometimes you don't testify until 5 o'clock or, you know, or beyond. And I say beyond because we were there until 4 a.m. once. But they stay and they wait and they wait and they wait so that they can have an opportunity to be heard. And when I look out in the audience and I see that there's been someone sitting there the entire time and waited so they could tell their story for those 2 minutes, it moves me. Because it tells me how important that particular matter is to them. Now, no shade on the folks who have to leave. I get it. You know, you have children, you have, you know, you may be a provider, for a care provider for someone, you have to leave. And I understand that. But I'm just saying there are usually And, Madam Public Defender is there too, but when you see, now she sees it, the crowd just, gets thinner and thinner and thinner as people testify, and there's usually just this 1 or 2 people who are still in the room, and they get up and they testify, and they only have those 2 minutes. So they waited all day to be able to say what they needed to say in 2 minutes, and they really, really want us to hear them. And they want us to hear them absorb what they're saying, and to ask questions if we have them. And I usually do ask questions, and I'll tell you why. Because I want them to know that I heard what they said. I don't want them to come down and wait all day, and then we say, thank you, goodbye. That's like, I don't know what it's like, but I don't want it to happen. So that's why sometimes I'll just ask a question, and the question sometimes is there anything more you want to say? So that's why I do what I do. I want to listen. I want to help. Obviously, this is a public service position, but I'm here to serve. I'm here to listen, and I'm here to lead as daringly as I possibly can.
Well, thank you for all that.
May I put a plug in? I want to put a plug in.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've gathered here, and I definitely want to say a special thank you to Judge Williams. But let this not be the last. We've talked about some really important issues. January 8th is when the legislative session begins. Yes, it's 2 minutes, but those 2 minutes do matter. Or you can write your testimony, or you can appear by Zoom. But your voice does matter, especially on issues such as this. I'm going to put a personal plug for OPD. We are on LinkedIn, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram. We are advocating, we are out there. We would love your support, we would love your input, we love your comments. But please find a way to stay active and engaged and involved, and go beyond the 60-second soundbite that you hear on the news or on whatever social media, because the 60 seconds does not give you the full depth of what is actually happening. So continue to come to forums like this and go deeper, because it matters to the community, and it definitely matters for our children.
Well, we do want to thank all of our panelists and our moderator for the very insightful and lively discussion that they provided us for this evening. I'd like you all to please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Judge Williams. As Judge Williams is coming up, panelists, please remain on stage.
All right, good evening. And I'm not going to be long. My sons are looking at me and telling me that the commanders are on. Judge, you got to wrap it up, so that's no problem. But let me thank everyone this evening who've joined us for this wonderful event. Again, thank the panel. You all had some very incisive comments. Really enjoyed it. I want to thank my board members. All my board members are here. If you just raise your hand, my board members. Thank you. They all have spoken. Some of you men who spoke. I have a very dedicated staff. Any of my staff people still here? All right, they do just a wonderful job. So must express appreciation to Mary Marshall. Again, she said 4 years. We call her every year. She agrees to come. She's a great meteorologist on Channel 9 and a weather anchor, and she so kindly comes every year. I congratulate the 3 Justice Award honorees, the Latin America Youth Center, and the board chair, Jennifer Master, the Rebuild, Overcome, and Rise Center, and the Anne Arundel County Community Action Agency. Again, thank you for all that you do. Let us show love and appreciation for this outstanding panel. We've lifted up some great points and topics. Thank you, Dr. Michael Bernard, the Professor of Law at the University of Maryland, Francis T. Carey School of Law, House Delegate Sandy Bartlett, thank you so much, District 32, Anne Arundel County, Judge Wytonja Curry, Circuit Court for Prince George's County, Natasha, the CEO and the Maryland State Public Defender, and of course, again, Mr. Schiraldi, the Secretary of the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services, and Carlotta, Woodward, the Chief of the Juvenile Division of the Montgomery County State's Attorney's Office. The father of Judge Patrick of Woodward called me and said he couldn't make it, he had another conflict, but as you know, Carlotta, he's my good friend. And we go to a lot of the Commanders games together. So again, thank all of you all for coming and supporting us. Have a good evening, drive safely, and we'll see you next year for another outstanding program. Thank you so much.